So this debate is going to be about whether young people should be progressives, conservatives, or perhaps something else. And we're going to hopefully come to some resolution at the end of this. So with that, I want you to give a huge Politicon round of applause. Make some noise for Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA and Hassan Piker of the Young Turks. All right. Oh, I love Politicon.
Like Twitter in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
I barely fit in this chair.
Okay. All right. So, okay, did you guys have fun last year?
I had fun.
Did you have
Yeah,
fun?
no, it was a lot of fun, yeah.
So clearly, people were entertained because they wanted us back. And so here we are, and we're going to discuss young people in America, especially given how this millennial demographic is increasingly a major force in American politics. And so what I want to start with is just some opening thoughts from both of our panelists here on some of the major issues facing young people, and then we're going to dig deeper into some of those issues. So I'll start with Charlie first. Charlie, tell us from your perspective what you see as some of the biggest issues facing young people today, and then as part of that, why you think young people should be conservatives.
Well, I'd say the biggest issue facing our generation is there's been a bipartisan agreement to continue to spend money we don't have, grow government at the expense of our generation, concentrate power around Washington, D.C. to benefit the wealthy few and the well-connected. And this shouldn't necessarily be a partisan issue, but it does. It becomes. And as we conservatives believe, we believe the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. As we send more money to Washington, D.C., the IRS gets more powerful, the government bureaucracies get more powerful, and our freedom decreases with that. As we've seen in the last 18 months, what happens when you start to cut taxes and deregulate the economy? The lowest ever black unemployment rate, the lowest ever Hispanic unemployment rate, the highest ever median income amongst the Hispanic community, economic confidence at an all-time high, 4.2% GDP rate, 3.7% unemployment rate. This economy is so great, Obama's trying to take credit for it. And you can start to see the beginning stages of what happens when you embrace conservative principles and conservative ideas, juxtapose that with the last 8 years, which was mediocrity and apologizing for being American. And it's great that we have a president that believes in the free market, free enterprise system, and I look forward to this discussion with Hassan, as it's always lively and never disappoints.
All right. So Hassan, you can respond to some of those points if you want to, but also tell us what you see as some of the big issues facing young people today, and from your perspective, why you think young people should be progressive.
I'll lead.
I think I'm going to take an apolitical approach as well to this conversation because I like to look at issues and identify what they are and provide what kind of solutions I think are the best possible ones. Currently, the economic system that we're living under is inherently exploitative, it's inherently oppressive, and we're now actually feeling the devastating impact of that more than ever. We live in a country where there are 40 million Americans. We live in the wealthiest nation that has ever existed, the wealthiest nation on the planet, and we have 40 million Americans living in poverty. We have 18.5 million Americans living in extreme poverty, according to the latest UN reports. Climate change is happening no matter how hard people try to deny its existence, and its outcomes are devastating, especially for millennials, and this is something that we need to focus on. And unfortunately, every single time we tried to bring about any sort of socialized solutions to these problems that the free market obviously fails to provide solutions for, we get called socialist, and that idea is inherently damaging. We live under an inherently oppressive capitalist dogma, and I'm here to talk about that because I think that at least questioning that and striving to find a better system is exactly what young people should be doing right now.
One of the things that Bernie did so fucking well was Bernie was a really good cheerleader. And I feel like this guy, Hassan, needed that. I can already see how this is going to start to go, and I feel like it's not going to favor Hassan. Bernie was good because Bernie would get up there and say, we need education that we can afford. We need a healthcare system that doesn't leave our poor sick in the streets. And we need fair wages for fair work, some shit like that, right? Like some like 3 or 4 real fucking easy points. Everybody hears it. Everybody cheers it. Because what's not to love about free healthcare, free education, more wages? Easy fucking shit. Yeah, that kind of shit. Bernie was so good with fucking crowds of people. I feel like that's yeah, I feel like that would have done a lot better here.
Right. So inherently oppressive. So small business owners are oppressing their employees.
Come on, you're hyper-focusing on small business, dog. I'm talking about capitalism versus socialism.
Even though 85% of all jobs in this country are created by small businesses. Even though
Why are you trying to...
Oh, no! That's such a good point to attack. Small businesses that don't provide health care to their employees, that don't provide extended benefits to their employees. 85% of jobs are by small businesses. Why are the businesses still small if they're so successful? Like, are these giving comprehensive 401k, medical, dental packages, people? Anybody that's worked for a small business knows a small business are fucking shit to work for. There's a reason why people don't champion going to work for a fucking small business, okay? Fuck, I wish... fuck. That's such a dumb fucking point.
Poverty rates have gone to the lowest level in the last 65 years.
Do you want to ask questions? Wait, hold on.
Let me finish. I let you finish, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish. 3.9 million Americans have gone off food stamps and into the labor force under this president. That should be applauded by everybody. When less people have to go to government for money and for meaning, and they instead are able to go to a job and have a paycheck, that's a good thing. And so the final thing I'll say is this, and you'll find disagreement.
It's a good thing that people are off food stamps, but that shouldn't be the bar for success for the country, right? Which is the main point that people bring up, right? Like, in a day and age where people are being richer than they've ever been in their entire lives, like, your bar for success for the average American is whether or not they're on or off food stamps, right? When Jeff Bezos is making billions and billions and billions of dollars, if his stock changes a couple points, we're pointing to the fact that less people are on food stamps. How about we look at the levels of education we're achieving in our country? How about we look at the access to healthcare that we have in our country? How about we look at the access to affordable and quality housing, the access to luxury goods? These are the standards by which we should measure our success, not how many people are on food stamps, right? Fuck!
Because someone gets rich does not mean someone gets poor. In order for you to get rich in a free market system, you must have a good idea. You must create value. You must employ people. You probably borrowed money. And you have an 80% chance of that business not succeeding. In a free market, yes, we applaud success, but you must take responsibility for failure. And you have seen in the last 100 years the standard of living increase for all people across the world. Things get better, prices go down, and we are able to enjoy the abundance that only a free market system can create. And you know what? I don't have to call you guys socialists. Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist.
Yeah.
And we should reject socialism.
No, we should. Yeah.
Oh, agreeing with him there looks so weak. No! You can't agree with him at the end there. First of all, no one's even talking about socialism. Have we even gotten to socialism? Oh, I guess he started off as critiquing capitalism, so maybe, but...
It's very nice of you to immediately launch this accusation that I don't care for small businesses, or small businesses will never exist under a social democracy, kind of similar to small businesses in Nordic countries and with robust economies, but with also a powerful and protective social welfare programs and socialized safety nets. This exists everywhere around the world. All of the comparable Western democratic nations.
One of the reasons why I would never agree to these formal debate kind of things, or why I really don't like the idea of them, if I were to ever debate a person like this guy, you need to be able to stop them and go point by point. I would never let some motherfucker like this guy gish gallop the fuck out of me with 72 fucking stats and then throw it to me at the end and expect me to have a retort. Or, I mean, you could, but you would have to engage in equally kind of like dubious, in equal kind of like bullshit tactics. Like, fuck that shit. I'm not gonna let this guy stack 50 fucking shit claims on me and then throw it to me at the end like I'm supposed to respond to that deluge of fucking statistical bullshit. Fuck that shit.
Have been able to institute socialist principles, and that's precisely why their people are a lot happier.
How do you think you would adjust your style of discussion to a format like this? Would you try to play to the camera? Oh yeah, and again, like, this is why I'm not like interested in this kind of stuff. But in this type of debate, yeah, playing the crowd would be like absolutely amazing, right? Yeah, of course. Well, all you need are a few numbers on your side, and then you have to ask him why your numbers allow your numbers to exist, right? So like, because you can basically, the goal would be to turn his numbers against him, right? Like, oh, you say that 80% of Americans have small businesses. Oh, or 85% of small businesses. Oh, you say that Unemployment is at its low. Oh, you said this, right? That sounds like everything is working. Well, why is it that, 25 million Americans can't afford healthcare? Why is it that the costs of our education are outpacing every other, income metric that we have, are outpacing inflation? Why is it that Americans consistently achieve lower on happiness indexes, on access to healthcare, on access to education, on all of these other metrics compared to other countries in the world? What's wrong here? Explain to me this. Why your statistics all say we're doing so well, but on all of these other metrics we're failing compared to other countries, right? Because then all of the statistics that he's citing for success, if they don't bear out in the end to benefit your country, okay, well now you tell me what's the problem here, right? Because then the onus is on him to explain why his stats, well, shit, I came in here with all my stats saying everything's good, but I mean, nobody's going to sit here and say America is the best education in the world for all of its citizens. We're not the most educated. We fail in every fucking index compared to other countries, Scandinavian countries, South Korea, all the, right? Nobody's going to say we have the most access to healthcare. That's ridiculous. And access is a good way to measure the quality of your healthcare because nobody cares how good it is if you don't have access to it, right? So, you would have to turn his stats against him and then you play into the crowd that way and then force him to explain why you said America's doing so well. Why do we fail then on all these different metrics? Right?
But then on top of that, what's really important to me is focusing on the rate of growth and the GDP is great, but you can't answer this one simple question. Who cares what our GDP is if the person who is dying of abject poverty
This is good.
it can't heal himself because we don't have a
He's way too wordy. I don't know if he's nervous or whatnot, but this is a good point.
socialized medicine, for example.
Right? Why do I care that we have 4.3% GDP growth if X percentage of Americans don't have health insurance, right? That's a less wordy way of saying it, right? Yeah.
If you want to talk about healthcare solutions, happy to talk about it. You brought up Norway, Sweden, Finland. You would call those socialist countries.
No! Don't ever let somebody do this. I already see what he's fucking doing. Don't ever let somebody try to fucking dialogue tree you. Oh my god. He's fucking doing this out of the Crowder book. The conservatives do this so often where they hear when we're like, whoa. Did you talk about the Scandinavian countries? I'm glad you brought that up. Did you say Finland, Sweden, Norway? Oh, well, hold on one second. Did you know that these countries are, in actuality, built all of their wealth on capitalism? Hold on, wait, I'm not done yet. They built all of their wealth on capitalism before they started their social democratic nuts, and they're not as large or diverse as the United States. They don't have as many black people and they're not as culturally diverse as we are. They're much right? Don't ever let somebody fucking launch themselves into some bull. I guarantee you. I could be wrong, but it sounds like that's exactly what he's about to do.
No, I wouldn't call them socialist countries.
Okay,
they're definitely on a scale. Yeah, I said they're social democracies, which would be a more socialist country. Okay, look, if we're going to have this conversation...
He really wants to say it. Let me say all this shit. I've got this whole script memorized for these 3 fucking countries. Please let me do it.
I asked a very simple question.
No, we'll have a consensus on this first. Let me ask you a question, okay? Because this is really improper framing, and a lot of people confuse socialism.
You said inherently exploitative. You framed the argument.
With capitalism, yeah, I did.
Okay, so that's... Yeah. And I rebutted that. So
how did you rebut that?
By talking about just because
by talking about small businesses. It doesn't matter. Every single business
Hassan, let me say one thing. Norway, Sweden, and Finland, according to the World Economic Freedom Index, are ranked higher than the United States of America. That is not socialist. They are.
They're actually they're actually capitalists. They build their wealth on capitalism. Okay, we got 1 point. How many are we gonna do?
They have lower taxes.
So that means that you can have socialism and yet still have successful businesses in your country. Thank you for proving my point for me.
No,
I love this.
It's the exact opposite. You know what socialist is? Bernie Sanders wants an 80% tax rate on the rich.
Venezuela too, right? Dude, listen.
That's not socialism. Neither of what these guys are talking about right now is socialism. For Hassan, I don't think the Scandinavian countries are socialist, and socialism has nothing to do with high taxes. What is happening here? Oh, God.
No, Bernie Sanders wants to keep our fossil fuel assets in the road.
You want me to explain it to you? Because you obviously don't understand it. Do you want me to explain it to you?
Is Cuba not socialist? Is North Korea not socialist? Was Vietnam not socialist? Was Zimbabwe not socialist? You can laugh all you want, Hassan,
okay, do you
but
want
100 million people died under socialism.
Oh, all the fucking meme talking points. I said he said at the start, right? It's like Twitter in person. He's right. It really feels like a Twitter convo.
Years, and you have the gumption to continue. You can keep laughing to the victims' families from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Korea, from Vietnam, from Mao's China, from Stalin's Russia. The number one killer of citizens, from innocent civilians the last 100 years, has been the very idea that you shamelessly wear on your sleeve every single day. Marxism has killed more people than any other ideology over the last 100 years.
Okay.
Isn't Marxism literally by definition just an analysis of capitalism? Is it even anything more than that? I could be wrong, but okay. I feel like I need my fucking I feel like I need my conservative bingo card here, but Jesus Christ.
Thank you for those words.
You're welcome.
When 100 million people die under a communist dictatorship, and some of those millions are also Nazis, which is included there, whatever, you blame communism.
National Socialist Workers Party.
Or you blame...
Nationalist socialism. Oh, shit. It's right. How can you advocate for socialism when it's right there? National socialism. Ugh, right there. Shouldn't then you just say, like, do you love your country? And the guy's like, yeah, I do. National socialism? National, like... I like that this is the level of political theory discourse. Look at the word. Look at the word in that title. Gotcha.
You blame socialism, but when 7 million people die every year under our current global capitalist environment, where just by famine alone, before we even talk about imperialism, and before we even talk about the damaging wars that are happening all around the world, then it's the individual. So you're essentially telling every single person that's poor, it's your fault that you're poor, it's your fault that you die under a capitalist system, but if you were under a communist system...
I have never said that.
I mean, that's literally what you're saying.
No, it's not.
So whose fault is it? Whose fault is it that 7 million people every year die just by famine-related diseases and famine under our current global capitalist structure?
Whose individual fault is it?
Yeah. Why is it with the system when it comes to communism, but it's actually
go from 40 years to 80
Don't let him go and make him fucking answer the fucking question. Make him answer that goddamn question. Don't let him. Over the last 40 years, capitalism has given us the most prosperity of any time.
In America for women and 76 years for women.
You're not answering my
question.
Global
poverty is at its all-time low. There never has been.
But you're not
below 10%.
You're not answering my question. You're not answering. You're talking about something completely different. There is not a singular person why individuals might.
Then why does communism get the blame for all of the whatever individual shit Mao and Stalin and all these other fucking shitters did?
Unfortunately, however, what's going to stop that?
It's unfortunate when they die.
Oh, yes, yes, Hassan. Death is unfortunate.
Yeah, correct. I know. I understand. But you make it seem as though they are just a statistic.
How do you solve it? So let's talk about healthcare in particular.
Okay.
Oh, you still let him walk. You should have fucking made him bite the bullet on that. Fuck.
Some sick Yeezys, I know.
Because a common critique of conservatives is that we do not have a plan for healthcare. It's quite simple. First of all, the idea that we do not have socialized medicine or a test case for it in the States is incorrect. The Veterans Administration.
If you say the veterans, oh god,
$180 billion a year.
How disgusting!
What about Medicare or Medicaid? One is for poor people, one is for old people, and I always mix them up. I need to create a pneumatic device. But what about Medicaid is for the poors? Okay, what about Medicaid?
Spend trying to help our veterans. Hassan, let me finish. $180 billion a year we spend trying to help our veterans. And they wait in line, they die in the clinics, the quality of care is unbelievably low. You cannot say that the Veterans Administration is a well-run government agency despite us spending $180 billion a year trying to help our vets. We have seen
disgusting
what's
that
disgusting?
you would send these young men and women overseas to go fight not you, I'm talking about conservatives in general. Just conservatives in general don't mind sending these young men and women overseas to fight imperialist conquests that have nothing to do with protecting America or protecting American sovereignty. Hold on, that's great, that's great. That's just one war, though. We're waging many currently. But then they come back, and the numbers have obviously increased. The number of casualties have increased. The treatment is drastically different than a regular pool of American citizens who aren't in the line of fire. How could you then turn around, not fund that system that we promised those veterans we would take care of them, not fund that system, and then use it as a talking point to say socialized medicine does not work? That is disgusting.
We should take care of our vets.
That was good. That was a good. In terms of trueness, blah, 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 I can see why it's kind of, that was a good tirade.
You know what's disgusting, Hassan? The fact that you defend that system. The fact that vets die waiting.
Now we get it. I hate the I'm not going to say that. I don't hate the vets, but god damn, dude. The most important thing that soldiers defend are politicians and arguments. I'm sorry, but like, that is like, the bodies of our soldiers are literally used for so many political arguments. Like, god damn. Oh.
For care. Our vets are our heroes. First of all, I'm against the Afghanistan war, against the Iraq war, against our funding of Saudi Arabia's illegal war in Yemen. I'm against the missile strikes in Syria. So don't try to paint me in the same blend and the same brush that all neoconservatives are. Second of all, ironically, Donald Trump is making the world a safer place. The Korean War is ending thanks to Donald Trump. ISIS is on the run and being destroyed.
ISIS was dead before Trump took office.
What does this have to do with us lying to our veterans that we were going to take care of them and then letting them
Veterans Administration,
on the
which
streets,
is socialized medicine, the Veterans Administration, which is socialized medicine, does a
What about
disservice.
Medicaid?
You advocate for
What about
socialized
Medicaid?
medicine. I do not want the rest of the country.
I'm not saying the
to be
VA is
subjugated
good.
to
I'm
the
saying
same
that it's
level of care
underfunded.
that our veterans have to
You're
go through.
using that as a tool to just attack socialism,
No, a
attack
piece of
socialized
evidence.
medicine.
It's
when
called evidence,
This works
Hassan.
in every other country that has tried to do this. This works. This system absolutely
Cuba?
works.
How does the
fact that-
Cuban
fact-
healthcare system work?
The Cuban health
Cuban healthcare
The
system.
Cuban healthcare system? Oh, you mean the country where they're on the verge of solving AIDS and a multitude of different cancer research? Like, what are you talking about?
Where their
Just because-
their life expectancy is 15 years,
Okay, but
less than the United States.
There's a lot of reasons to shit on Cuba. As a Cuban person, I mean, I know all of them. But I thought life expectancy in Cuba was, yeah, very high. I don't understand why he would bring up that stat. I guess he was just relying on Hassan not knowing that. But I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know why he would bring that up. Okay.
Where they have widespread starvation, where they lock up political dissidents.
Okay.
Why do people flee Havana, Cuba for Miami, Florida?
I don't know.
But they
Maybe
don't
our
flee
sanctions
Miami,
have
Florida
something to do with
for
it?
Havana, Cuba.
Okay, I'm
Maybe
going
it's
to step
because
in here.
maybe it's because people did not want to willingly give away their land. But I'm not here defending Cuba. I don't give a shit about Cuba, dog. I'm talking about America.
No, you just-
and I'm
you just
talking
said
about
they're
comparable
solving AIDS,
nations.
which is
I'm talking about
categorically
comparable
false.
nations. We are talking about socialized medicine in comparable nations. Are you going to say that America and Cuba are virtually identical? I think that Canada is a better example, and there are definitely problems within the Canadian healthcare system. Again, due to privatization and due to underfunding and crippling the institution from within because of privatized policies. This is all private enterprise is grossly responsible for the lack of affordable healthcare in this country. It shouldn't even be affordable. It should be free. This is what the people want.
Nothing
Charlie.
is free, Hassan.
82% of Americans, 82%
It's not
of
free if your
Americans
neighbor is
want
paying for it.
Medicare for all. 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all. The only people at this point, the only people who are standing firmly against Medicare for all are just essentially saying, look, I don't care. I love corporate lobbyists. I think big pharma should continue to increase their profits. And it doesn't matter if you can't live a dignified life without the crippling fear that if you lose your job, you might lose your health care and you might literally die. And if you can't fund your medicine, if you can't fund your health care, then you should beg on the internet through crowdsourcing.
Again,
Candace
Hassan,
Owens
you are virtue
was-
signaling constantly because you are
Virtue
implying
signaling?
you are implying that just
Virtue
because I have a
signaling?
different policy perspective that I care less about these people.
I mean,
the free market
I said
system.
if you're against
whenever
it, that's what you want.
So in
You
every
want
single
private
sector and vertical, allow me to finish.
Okay, you
whether
want
it be
private interests
housing,
more? You care
whether it
about
be in
private
food, whether it be in anywhere the free market is allowed to interact, which we do not have a free market system in healthcare right now. You cannot buy health insurance across state lines. We have a national quota for doctors. We have the FDA that disallows entrepreneurs to compete against big pharma by having patents for 30 years so that people with great
Do
ideas.
you think FDA regulation is bad when it comes to medicine? There are certain elements of regulation that is
Allow
bad.
me to finish,
but I want you to be
Hassan.
very specific. No, you can't just
Which
throw
one?
8
How about
different points.
Let me finish. How about a 30-year patent on a drug that disallows someone with a better idea that would bring down the price of the drug so that the middle class could have the same sort of treatment that the rich and powerful have?
That's the regulation that you think I'm against?
No, I'm not saying you're against
for
it. I'm
fully
saying what I'm
funding it
for,
in a
Hassan.
public
I
way.
hope
No,
you're
I
for
think
that.
we should look.
Again, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, you're right.
The free market allows itself to three really, really big things. It allows prices to go down, quality to go up, and abundance to go outward. Everywhere it's tried, whether it be grocery stores, whether it be housing.
Why are we comparing grocery store and housing? These are so dissimilar. This is why I hate the Babby's economics argument for healthcare. If I want to shop for groceries, okay, what I can do is I can sit here and I can say, I need to buy groceries. Tomorrow. Which store has the best steak? And where am I going to go? Okay, how far do I want to travel? Oftentimes, at the point of consumption for healthcare, you are not capable of making these same decisions. One, because not enough competition exists. Do you know 12 different hospitals in your area that you can go to for different types of treatment that you could for a grocery store? Two, because it's very hard as a consumer to compare what the consumption is going to be of these services. Do you know the cardiac surgeon at your nearest hospital or the trauma unit or trauma center at your hospital? Do you know their success rates? Three, oftentimes when we make these decisions, they have to be made on an immediate basis. I don't have the ability to plot out, 4 weeks from now, I got stabbed by a knife, where am I going to go, right? Oftentimes the consumption has to happen immediately after an event. Like, it is so stupid to compare healthcare to these other types of services like grocery stores. It is so disingenuous to do it. Also, the barriers to entry for these organizations are. I can fucking open a grocery store. I'm pretty sure that I have the capital that if I wanted to, I could probably do an SBA loan and probably open a fucking grocery store. I can't do the same with a fucking hospital. That's for sure. I don't even know how many hospitals are in my city. Can I look that up? How many hospitals in Omaha? I know that we've got the Creighton and the UNO. I don't even know what some of these are. Omaha VA Medical Center, Midwest Psychiatric Services, Children's Hospital. Maybe like 10-ish, do you think? I don't know how many of these are like separate hospitals. Now, if I were to look up like grocery stores in Omaha, pretty sure we would find like a lot more. I don't know. Comparing like hospitals to like grocery stores or like fucking Jiffy Lubes.
Laws of the market do not stop working just because it's in healthcare. Whether it be LASIK eye surgery. LASIK eye surgery used to cost $20,000 per eye. Insurance companies
technological advancements that are
because of the free market.
More affordable.
The insurance companies would not cover the LASIK eye surgery.
Ridiculous.
It was a cash business. Doctors went outside of the.
He's I know all of his talking points. I know all his talking points because I think I used to be this conservative and I've seen like everything. John Stossel did like a fucking 6-minute documentary on like.
There's a lot.
I know exactly what he's watched to get these talking points.
Grocery chain, which offers health savings.
I know why he's using grocery stores as an example. I know why he's talking about LASIK eye surgery.
You want some LASIK, baby? LASIK? Wait a second. That surgery is one of the few that insurance does not pay for. And guess what? LASIK keeps getting cheaper.
That's great. In every other field of medicine, the price is going up faster than consumer prices in general. But the price of LASIK surgery on average has gone down by 30%.
Prices drop.
I used to be this person, so I know like every fucking video this guy's fucking watched to get these opinions and why he's able to. It's so fucking sad. Oh God. Sorry. Okay.
Traditional system, and all of a sudden now it costs $500 per eye for LASIK eye surgery.
Everything you're saying is flat out false, and also
what's false about that?
Because we live under a mixed economy, Charlie. So it's a consequence of both publicly funded research and also certain private elements. So when you try to turn around and look at technological advancements that are happening in virtually every field, okay, virtually every field on an international scale, and assume that this is just a consequence of free market capitalism, well, let's talk. Yeah, no, it's actually unicorns, dude. Unicorns are giving us magically the
Hassan, answer me a question.
If we're going to lie about this stuff, then we might as well just go all the way out.
Does insurance cover LASIK?
Does insurance cover
LASIK?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because when you don't have the insurance lobby within the negotiation.
I like this. This is one example. Okay, dude, you got me. LASIK surgery. Now, let's look at every other medical system in the Western world that is socialized and compare it with the United States one. Let's talk about that next. Like,
of prices, then the consumer knows exactly what everything costs.
Are you going to?
The reason why healthcare costs so much in this
really
country, you go into a hospital, no one knows what anything costs.
There's a lot of.
So.
No one knows what anything costs for how long you stay there, for how long.
No one knows what anything. I swear to God, he's like pulling everything from this video. What would it be like if insurance covered steaks? You would know how much the steaks cost.
Groceries. But think about that. What if you had grocery insurance? You wouldn't care what things cost. Why buy hamburger? I'll just buy steak. So why look for sales? I'll just buy everything. My insurance company's paying.
We'd make a lot more money. You could raise your prices.
Like, he's unironically like going through this entire video right now. I remember when you showed me that video. Yeah, Kyle, when we were in... That was a high school video, right? It was a long time ago.
On the procedure is, a key component of a market is pricing.
Yeah.
The problem with the system we have
and we
now,
live in a country that is virtually the only country on the planet that does not negotiate drug prices. Even Donald Trump said he was going to do this, and he's failed to deliver on that promise among...
So is the LASIK meme just tech advancements? It's probably a combination of things. One, it's a relatively new procedure, right? LASIK has existed for like 20-ish years, if that. I'm not sure in terms of like the inception of it. Two, it's not covered by insurance, so it does have to be more competitive on price. I'm sure that helps to some extent. Three, it's also not like an essential service. So we only hear positives about LASIK because we don't necessarily need it. Like there's a huge elasticity for LASIK surgery. Imagine if it was a required thing that everybody had or they would die, and then people couldn't afford it. We'd probably hear a lot more baddish things about it, right? Or the inelasticity of that might actually drive the price up as well, right? Perhaps it's the fact that LASIK is such an elastically demanded service. When I say elasticity, what I mean is that as the price rises, people want less of it. The demand is elastic. It's changeable, as opposed to something like insulin, right? Where if the cost of insulin increases, you still fucking need it, right? You need insulin whether or not it's expensive or not, right? So if a service is more elastic, the higher the price, the lower the demand. That could influence it as well, right? There's a million different things. To just say that just because capitalism, just because free market, to ever give just one, and I'm uneducated, okay? I'm sure there's probably a plethora more reasons why LASIK is the reason that it is. I'm sure this goes all the way to the technological side, to the economic side, to the funding side. I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons why LASIK is priced the way that it is. To say just because capitalism is absurdly reductionist.
Many other promises, like he was going to solve the economy or that he was going to bring about world peace. Like, this is preposterous to assume that, like, insurance, you could just unjustifiably just throw out a claim without expecting me to, I can't even talk, holy shit, refute it. When you say, when you make this ridiculous assertion that insurance companies are actually decreasing prices when it's not the government
no, they're
who
not.
should be regulating
Hassan,
them.
I asked a very specific question.
What?
LASIK eye surgery
then you
not
followed it up-
covered by insurance.
Okay.
Consumers went straight to the doctor, so they knew how much it cost. Therefore, prices went down, quality went up, and accessibility went outward. That's what
why is
happens
it in
when a
virtually
market
every
is
other-
allowed to exist.
Hold on. So why
imagine
is it in virtually every other? Because I don't know the ins and outs of the complicated LASIK surgery, and I'm willing to bet that you don't either. You just know a talking point about it, but it doesn't matter. Look.
It didn't sound good, but that is actually
because
true.
You are
Can you
hyper-focusing on
disprove
LASIK
what I've said?
surgery. Are all Americans, is this the most important problem that all Americans have to face when it comes
However,
to our current obesity
I'm really
rate?
glad you
When it
asked.
comes to the cancer rate in the U.S.,
Hassan.
which is good. We're good on cancer if you can afford it.
So how do you get things to cost less? Competition, which is inherent in a free market.
Regulation.
Regulation raises
Absolutely.
prices. Regulation prices out
Absolutely.
middle-class consumers. Regulation is a tool used by corporations to go after small business owners. That is why the biggest corporation...
This is an
like
ex-skills
Pfizer.
me talking
You're
point.
right, dude. Come on, dude.
Pfizer has
You're
a
being so-
$100 million a year government lobbying budget. That
Yeah,
is not
I hate
right.
that. We agree on that.
That is corporatism.
Yeah.
That is not capitalism. It's different when you have a good idea versus buying lobbyists, sending them to D.C., saying, put all these rules and regulations that I can afford, but the entrepreneur from Silicon Valley that has a 5-person company cannot afford $20
So why is
million
it cheaper in other
regulation.
countries, Charlie? Explain that to me. If it's not government price negotiations, why is it cheaper in virtually every other country? As a matter of fact, this is a ridiculous talking point because, like, conservatives have, for the most part, maybe not Charlie, but I am willing to hear your perspective on this. Conservatives, for the most part, have, like, completely decided that the whole regulation conversation is ridiculous and have gone so far as to say that we are subsidizing healthcare for the rest of the world because we are the most innovative nation when it comes to medicine. It's preposterous. Every other nation is able to do this, and these companies are still selling to them. Obviously, they're not selling out of the goodness of their heart because there's no such thing. It's all profit motive, right? So they're capable of lowering drug prices here in the United States as well. But the only reason why they won't, and you're correct on this, I will tell you, because obviously I'm very anti-lobby here and anti-corporatist and anti-capitalist as well, which, by the way, lobbying is inherently a capitalist structure. You constantly talk about how money is...
Corporatist. There's
What?
difference.
Okay, corporatist and capitalist. Like, the two go hand in hand.
Those are not the same thing. That's like saying
Crony capitalism is just unfettered capitalism.
That's like saying National Socialism is what socialism is? Is that what you were going to say?
And you are constantly, on the one hand, arguing against regulation, and then on the other hand saying, well, it's not true capitalism.
Okay,
Which one is it?
okay,
Should
so-
we regulate capitalism so it doesn't turn into crony capitalism?
I think we should
Or
massively
not
deregulate the American economy. I'm not saying to abolish every single piece of regulation. But when
What are they
regulations...
specifically?
Let me finish.
Except for, like, the patent one, which I'm on board with as well.
What regulation specifically? How about Dodd-Frank? That'd be a great start. That
We
this
did.
allows
We already
community
got
bank-
rid. Wait, Dodd-Frank and Glass-Steagall, I thought were both like largely defunct. But Dodd-Frank wasn't Dodd-Frank killed a long time ago? Isn't that what allowed the 2007 crisis to happen? I gotta look this up. Or no, wait. Or was Dodd-Frank was the new one that got dismantled? I'm pretty sure, right? And then Glass-Steagall was the one that led up to it. That was essentially taken apart, right? That Glass-Steagall was the one that got taken apart that allowed, didn't essentially allow banking to deal in investment banking, right? To intermingle these two services. And then I thought Dodd-Frank was largely, on June 8th, 2017, the Republican-led House passed the Financial Choice Act, which, if enacted, would roll back many of the provisions of Dodd-Frank. In John 2017, the Senate was crafting its own reform bill. On March 14, 2018, the Senate passed a bill by a 67-31 vote, easing financial regulations and reducing oversight for banks with assets below $250 billion. The law passed House of Representatives. Dodd-Frank was the reaction to 2000. Yeah, I thought Dodd-Frank's goal was to bring back some... Sorry, okay, I'll let them keep going.
From competing against Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase. The big banks wrote Dodd-Frank. That is why we've seen an 80% decrease in community banks over the last 8 years since the passage of Dodd-Frank, because it makes it nearly impossible for community banks to be able to compete against the Wall Street banks. I will say this.
What Charlie fails to mention with Dodd-Frank is like...
I did not interrupt you.
No, what Charlie fails to mention with Dodd-Frank, and you can't say this and not mention this part, there are plenty of fail-safes within Dodd-Frank, which was imperfect, I will admit. There are plenty of fail-safes that were also taken away. For example, the fiduciary responsibility. So if you're an old person and you go up to a bank, that your banker can virtually make any sort of risky financial decision they want to now, because they took that away so that the bankers could make more money off of your money that they're playing around with. This is the kind of deregulation that already caused the 2008 housing.
All right, I'm not going to get into...
No, you're not going to
Fannie and Freddie rating...
Oh, that was a talking point he wasn't ready for, so he doesn't want to get into it? That sounded real bad.
I know what the fuck
Federal
you're talking
Reserve,
about.
Federal Reserve lowering, Federal Reserve
dude.
lowering interest rates. Hold on, what's Fannie and Freddie, genius? What's Fannie and Freddie? Tell me what that is. Tell me about the rating agencies.
Okay.
Tell me about how we should have allowed Wells Fargo to pay a price, and those people should be in prison right now for doing what they did.
I agree.
And lying to federal regulators.
Charlie
and it was,
sounds like
and it
a
was
communist to
Democrat
me.
Congress and a Democrat Senate and a Democrat president.
Advocating
that
to
did
jail
not-
bankers, I'm on board, dog. Let's
we can
do
just
it
keep
right
on talking
now.
over each other for the next 45 minutes, or you can let me finish. The final thing I'll say on banking regulation, one of the...
I don't know if this guy is like, I don't think he's an alt-righter. I don't know how you would describe it, but it is very much true that the, do I call him fascist? That the new kind of like hyper-nationalistic Trump-esque conservatives are actually quite anti-corporatism, corporatists. So for instance, like, these are people that are okay with fucking over corporations to achieve a more perfect America for whatever shit they're in. I'm uncomfortable labeling them all as fascists, but like somebody like a Nick Fuentes would be on board with a lot, where he would say, oh yeah, Nick Fuentes would be like, yeah, fuck that, jail everybody involved in the 2007 shit, fuck those huge companies. There are a lot of anti-corporatists now that identify as conservative or Republican. I thought, although isn't Trump literally corporatism? Yeah, but people that support Trump are fucking stupid as fuck. But yeah.
The biggest misrepresentations of reality is somehow that free market capitalism contributed to the 2008 financial crisis. It was the rating agencies in bed with Fannie and Freddie Mac doing AAA bond rating with B and B- rated bonds. No one looked what they were actually rating.
I mean, this is all encouraged, arguably, under capitalism. I mean... wasn't the reason why you would go to certain bond rating agencies. They're not going to give you bad ratings because then you'd go to somebody else, right? Like all of this fucked up behavior was kind of incentivized in a capitalist mindset, right? I mean, isn't that essentially what...
It was the government institutions that were telling Wall Street to continue to go after subprime mortgage lending, where they did credit default swaps on top of it, leveraging the entire American economy, with Alan Greenspan artificially lowering interest rates after 9/11, playing with cheap money. Pair that with the Community Reinvestment Act. And
is this like all, I really need to watch The Big Short. Is this like all like The Big Short talking points? Because it seems like we've launched into something else that he's like really comfortable like reciting a script for.
No one actually knowing what they're trading.
I don't like liberal
all
dog.
certified
We're on the same page.
by Washington.
We're on the same page, but you sound a lot like a communist when you make those points. I'm just going to let you know. When you're like, let's jail bankers, let's regulate both our politicians and also these corporations. You can't just sit here and say that it's deregulation. You keep mentioning the failures of capitalism, and then your solution to the failures of capitalism is
I've mentioned
more capitalism, more free market.
Failure of statism. Well, you know how about the failure? How about the successes of free market capitalism? The fact that we have abundance in light, air conditioning, The fact that we have more food that we throw away every single year than we actually eat. The fact
Wait,
that in
exactly.
the Western
You
world,
think that's a good thing? You think that our waste is a good thing, dude?
we have an abundance problem in
Yeah,
the West,
we
not a
have an
scarcity
abundance-
problem.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, the average
Well, we have an abundance problem in the West, but we also have a distribution problem as well, right? We're the richest country in the world, but if you go to LA or San Francisco, right, you walk around certain parts of Hollywood, you have to be careful not to step in shit or you know, stepping over the disgusting, smelly bodies of fucking homeless people that are laying around everywhere. Like, I mean, that's pretty sad.
Venezuelan has lost 17
yes.
pounds. Oh, yes? 4,000% inflation. Yes. Brink on the Civil War.
Venezuela,
yes. Number one
the
oil
only
reserves in the world.
socialist
They don't have a
country on the
functioning
planet,
economy.
everybody.
Yes. The fact they have 42% unemployment. Yes. The fact that...
God, this guy is the Gish Gallop master. This guy must do these debates like often, right? Like he just launches into all of these fucking stats and numbers. Oh my God.
Maduro continues to exploit his citizens around the lies of Karl Marx. Yes. Is that what we're talking about, Hassan?
Yes. I love that you think you owned. Oh my God.
First of all, can I just stop
No,
you
no,
guys?
hold on. No,
Okay.
you can't just let him.
Okay, all right.
You
I'll
can't
give you
just
one
let
more
him
word.
throw away
No,
the
just interrupt me
Republican
again.
Despacito, which is every single time the dirty S word is mentioned, he's like, "Oh, Venezuela, dude."
All right, I'll give you
I
Cuba.
get it. I get
I'll let
it.
Hassan
You can't.
respond.
No. You gotta let me
Yeah, no,
talk.
I'm gonna let you
You gotta let me
respond.
talk. You did your dance and you said Venezuela. You got it out, and I'm
Pretty
glad
good, right?
you did. I'm glad you did. It's the ultimate defense. Like I said, Venezuela has virtually the same Venezuela has socialized its extraction industries, which is why it is extremely comparable to a Nordic country like Norway. If socialism successfully is implemented, or at least social democracies are successfully implemented in countries like Norway, then some countries fail because they're corrupt or because of currency mismanagement or because of a variety of different reasons like the IMF or American sanctions or even backing military coups in the country, which Donald Trump apparently, the world leader in peace, is toying around with as if that has worked ever in Latin American countries or anywhere worldwide. Like, there are a multitude of different reasons why socialism or a more robust social state has not worked in Venezuela, but it obviously has been successful in other countries.
Like
but
Zimbabwe,
you make
Cuba,
it seem like that,
Vietnam,
as though
North
that's
Korea,
the only reason.
Former Bulgaria, former Belarus,
Charlie, you're not letting
East
me
Germany,
finish.
Soviet Union. Those were great test cases
Charlie,
for socialism, right?
I'm glad that you know countries. I'm glad that you are demonstrating that despite our public education system, you are still knowledgeable on different countries. Stop naming countries and let me finish, okay? All right. Like, so ridiculous, dude. At this point, you guys all have to be aware that this is a ridiculous notion, right? There are plenty of socialized countries around the planet. It's not just Venezuela. And also, let me tell you another thing, okay? When Nordic countries want to implement social democracies or socially democratic principles, it doesn't matter because the United States can't impose sanctions on them, and the United States can't go and bomb them. The United States can't implement coups in their countries, and look at that. It freaking works, dude. It works. Maybe we should stop meddling in foreign affairs all around the world and allow these countries to do whatever they want. Because you can virtue signal as much as you want.
I generally agree with a non-interventionalist.
You can talk about virtue signaling. Here's what's virtue signaling. Acting like you care about Venezuela. Acting like you care about the interest of Venezuela.
I do care about Venezuela.
Yeah, if you did, you wouldn't be in support of an administration that is trying to put sanctions on Venezuela, a country that is already crippled. Like, it's a corrupt government. I'm sure there's an authoritarian element to it. I'm not the biggest fan of Maduro either. But you can't sit here and be like, oh, Venezuela, just to talk about socialism when your fellow men and women, your fellow brothers and sisters are dying in this country, and you want to stop socialized medicine from happening here. All right.
So again, so you're drawing a connection with empathy and with my policy prescription to help people. And I would say
because the free market principles have never worked in socialized medicine. Obviously, that's the reason why we're here. Like, that's the reason why. That's the reason why it's 4 times.
Can you explain to me though that why people did everything they could to flee East Germany, to go to West Germany, people flee Cuba
Oh
for
my
Miami,
God.
Florida, or they flee Venezuela for a free market system.
Why are they coming to America? Every immigrant's like, I'm coming to America for the free market system. Maybe the ones that you found. Like,
well,
what are you
they're
talking
also
about?
fleeing.
They're leaving
They're fleeing
violence
the communist
that we
dictatorships.
caused. They're leaving violence that we largely were responsible for, like the Honduran caravan, for example.
Let me ask you a question.
Who is implementing coups in these countries,
Hold on a second,
Charlie?
Hassan.
Who is
Hassan.
funding right-wing
Hold on.
paramilitary groups just because they're capitalist and they love the free market?
So tell me, since that's your general thesis, that the reason communism and socialism hasn't worked because of U.S. intervention, what U.S. intervention in Zimbabwe, or what U.S. intervention So the distinction between
Didn't we exploit like the entire fucking continent of Africa? Maybe not us directly, but didn't like Western countries like exploit like pretty much the entire fucking continent of Africa, like Central Southern Africa? I mean, I don't know like the history of fucking Zimbabwe. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I do, but.
The only reason, I'm not a dummy. I don't think there's a singular reason for an
Brazil
entire
for
country to
president.
absolutely fail. Like it's ridiculous
let me ask
to
you a
assume
question,
that it's
though.
because
South
socialism.
Korea
You're the only one who's
exists
saying
today
that.
because of U.S. intervention. North Korea lives in darkness.
It's not
and
just because of U.S. intervention, Charlie. There are a multitude of reasons,
Yes,
obviously.
the fact that socialism is evil, it doesn't work, it has proper proper incentives.
All of your reasons are just socialism is bad. Like you're literally like, no, it's socialism.
Well, no, and also that
socialism
free
is bad.
market capitalism is the
there are
most
plenty of
proven, moral, and
countries-
effective economic system ever discovered.
it's ridiculous.
That's lifted more people out of poverty. That Western civilization is one of the greatest experiments in human history. That the life expectancy has gone nearly double in the last 100 years.
You do realize
that
you keep
global
repeating
poverty
the same
has
talking points, right?
Well,
Like I understand that I understand the technological
doesn't mean it's any less true
advancements
just
are
because I repeat it.
inevitable.
Repetition
and
is the
it will-
soul of memory, and I hope you can remember some of this
Yes.
stuff so you can stop being a Marxist.
Yes,
Wait, I can't mind this.
I understand.
Fuck
I
you guys. You
understand
said I could
that
mine this
across
shit.
the board, due to exponential growth and also due to technological advancements, which were created as an outcome of both publicly and privately funded research all around the world, that we are currently in a better state. I fully understand that, and I fully agree with that. Only one side is arguing that it is all just magical free market principles, and just like only one side here is
Make
arguing
osmium?
that an entire nation is crippled because they decided to adopt Marxist principles, when plenty of other countries have are successful social democracies, or at the very least have a robust economy and also more social spending, where citizens are happy and they don't have to be living in fear that their bosses, if they fire them, they're on a whim, that they'll die.
Well,
Like, it's
let's bring it
crazy.
back domestically then. Why is it the most murderous, hopeless, and poor cities in America are all run by Democrats?
Oh, dude, he's got like every fucking meme talking point. Holy shit.
To do with anything. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're bad. What do you want me to say? Okay, sure.
Because
If
your
someone is
very
bad-
policies are put on trial in Philadelphia and Chicago
Yeah, you
and
know, like
Oakland
Rahm Emanuel,
and
the big
Portland
socialist,
and Seattle
who
and
said
Milwaukee.
Chicago needed socialized medicine, and that's why there's gun
Well,
violence. Like, what a dumb argument is
Chicago's
this?
already entertaining universal basic income, of which you support.
Oh,
they're
so
entertaining
you're saying they
education, right?
premeditatedly are having a lot of violence
Murders because they're waiting for their socialized healthcare?
because they're going to implement universal basic
Well, they
income?
also have the strictest
Please
gun
make a
laws
good
in the
argument.
country,
Please,
but
one time.
you're a big fan of those too.
Please make a good argument one time.
No,
You can't just say...
Can you answer the question though? Why is it that the most murderous...
Some of those Democrats are bad. What do you want me to say?
Or maybe the
Also,
ideas
you're
are bad,
taking-
Hassan,
What?
and maybe the ideas don't work.
But what are the ideas? Like, do you
The
really...
ideas are high
but they're
tax,
not
big
implementing
government,
socialist principles. That's
So what you would need him, okay, show me how high tax and big government causes black people to shoot black people in the streets. I really want to hear that causal chain. I am very interested in how that happens. I want to hear about that.
limiting
not why
government
they-
freedom, not investing, not allowing entrepreneurs
Name one
to take risks.
socialist principle that Rahm Emanuel has tried to
The
implement in
strictest
Chicago,
gun
which
laws
is
in the
why-
country.
Which is
Let's start
why-
with that. The fact that he doesn't allow school choice. The fact that he cracks down on the voucher system in Chicago. The
you
fact
think it's
that
not a
Chicago
problem
has
of
the highest
underfunding?
property taxes in the country. The fact that Chicago just instituted...
He's got to let him do, like, this Gish Gallop is destroying him. You can't let demagogues like this just fucking rattle and rattle and rattle. Oh my God, it is so destructive. You have to stop them and call them out when they start this shit, or else you'll always end up looking bad.
income tax. These are all quote-unquote progressive ideas. Chicago is more
Are
bankrupt,
you against all
hopeless.
taxation? Can we just get this out of the
No,
way?
I think we should have lower taxes. And thanks to
Like
Donald
what?
Trump,
But
we
like
have the
what?
lowest
But
tax
even
rate in
lower than
60
this?
years.
Give me a number, because like I never understand this. Because it's always like I love deregulation, I love
Yes.
lowering taxes. Like just making these declarative statements might sound great because the tangible impact of it is not necessarily immediate, especially when it comes to tax cuts. But we see the consequences 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line, like the erosion of the middle class in America. These are a consequence of Ronald Reagan era tax policies. This is crazy. All of our schools are failing, Charlie. We have
Because of Democrat.
What is this noise?
alliance
Oh,
with
come
teacher
yeah, Democrats like the
unions.
ones in
Strategy.
Oklahoma, right? That's where many
So you
districts
support
have
school choice,
4
Hassan?
days.
By the way, Sweden has school choice.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
So Sweden has school
that's
choice.
That's what I want. I don't want to desegregate.
So I believe that Sweden's experiment in school choice was a disaster, wasn't it? Didn't we read about this, that they tried doing school choice in Sweden and it didn't work out well at all? I thought we read about this. I don't remember, though. This was a while ago.
The schools. I actually don't support school. Like, we're so ridiculous, dude.
School choice
Stop
is
trying to
a
frame it.
solution that can allow poor families to go to a better school. As Democrat politicians and teacher unions that are
It's literally
preventing
like arguing
poor
against a
families
brick
from
wall.
sending their kids to better schools.
I'm trying to come to a conclusion with you about obvious problems that we have, but you are literally just regurgitating Republican talking points back at me without necessarily listening to anything
disprove
that I'm
anything
saying.
I've said, Hassan?
I say, this is what's going on with our
Disprove anything I've
schools.
said.
It's
Disprove one thing
underfunding,
I've said.
And then you go, do you hate choice? What does that have to do with what
I
I'm
asked
saying?
a question,
It's
Hassan. I
underfunding.
didn't say you hate choice. I said, are you for school
I
choice?
said, do you hate choice?
School choice.
Okay, do you hate school choice?
Do you
Sure.
support school choice?
It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous question because you
No,
don't.
it's
I already
actually Florida implemented school choice
It's
and went
already-
from 25th
No,
ranked
I
in
already said it.
education
I think
to second ranked in education in the country. School choice works and it helps the least
You're
of these,
doing it again.
which I know
You're
you care
literally
about.
like a politician,
Wait,
nonstop with
you
talking
mean
points.
saying
And-
facts?
But I
Do
gave
facts
you the
bother
answer.
you, Hassan? Does evidence bother
Like
you?
the wait.
Numbers bother
Everybody,
you?
No. Hold on, Charlie. Let's get back to reality for just a brief moment, okay?
I am using
Let's leave the
numbers.
conservative sphere for a second and get back to reality. You make false assertions nonstop.
Name
like, for
one.
example, the fact that Democratic policies are the reason why Oklahoma's school system has failed, when there's literally in certain districts, there's schools for 4 days. Like, what are you talking about? It's a consequence of underfunding these school systems, and that is inherently anti-socialist. If liberals are doing it, then they're also anti-socialist, and therefore they are wrong as well. And that's something that I want to talk about here. Look, this is why I came in and said, right now, the biggest problem in our country, from my perspective, is the fact that we don't look at socialism as if it's something that could potentially help us, but because of years and years of propaganda, and also very, very talented mouthpieces like Charlie here, and I will admit, he's
thank you.
very good at disseminating conservative agitprop. Okay, because of that, and because of the lack of supposedly inside of our liberal institutions, the lack of education surrounding Marxist theory only at the highest levels, that people genuinely assume that socialism is a bad thing and not necessarily something that can help us, something that can save us. These are popular policies, you guys. You guys are advocating against your own best interests. You're advocating against your own well-being. When you talk about free market principles, you're essentially saying, look, it's fine if private companies can do whatever they want, because private corporations are essentially privatizing tyranny, okay? They are unelectable, they are unaccountable, and this mythological free market
Can you
understanding
use some evidence,
hasn't
Hassan,
saved
please?
you at all.
Use some evidence so then we can have a discussion about
I mean, look around, dude. I already gave
I
you
look around and I see a lot of
Okay.
Trump supporters. Great. Go Trump.
Okay, no, that's great.
I mean, what,
Your example of
that's-
evidence is the fact that there are
Hassan,
Trump
that's
supporters
not
in the room at
evidence. Like,
Politicon.
I used
Very
evidence.
good.
Okay, so for example, evidence. Chicago has not had a Republican mayor since 1931. Evidence. Atlanta has not had
Stop
a Republican
looking at this
mayor
from partisan
in 120
perspectives.
years.
I don't care about the Democratic
okay,
Party.
But here's the point: is that your ideas have been put
Your
on
failure
referendum.
to see
Hassan,
that
let me
I'm not.
finish.
I also
Hassan,
don't like liberals.
I allowed you to
is
get through your
genuinely a
diatribe.
problem.
Allow me to
Oh
finish.
my
That's
God.
the perfect transition to the next topic here.
Hey, we have a moderator.
So, couple things here. First of all, I love these guys.
I knew you
because-
were here.
First of all, this is one of the most entertaining conversations I've seen in a long time.
Next year we won't need a moderator.
Second of all, you guys are very talented because you've touched on nearly all of the topics I wanted to touch on. Third, you've touched on actually what you ended on here is an interesting theme that actually cuts across the political divide, and that is that young people across the board are extremely skeptical of institutions. They are skeptical of both the Democratic and Republican parties. A plurality of millennials today identify as independent. So I want to get your take on this because I think it has a huge impact on the policy choices we decide. And I heard from both of you, when you mention Democratic policies, Hassan would say that I'm not a Democrat, and I do even criticize a lot of liberal policies, and vice versa. So let me actually start with Hassan on this.
For the record, just
Yes.
before we even get started, I didn't say I'm not a Democrat. I said I criticize Democrats because
Yeah.
I'm not a partisan hack, okay? if someone's policy choices, for example, like school voucher systems and whatnot, are inherently bad from a morality perspective, then I don't appreciate that. I'm going to criticize it. That's all I was saying.
Right, but
I don't have to defend the Democratic Party, and I certainly will not defend the Republican Party. That's all I wanted to point out. I will still probably vote Democrat in the end of the day because I believe in easing the burden placed upon the proletariat, and that is why I will vote Democrat, and I'll tell people to do that as well.
So let me ask.
Did he say the proletariat? I just
Are you triggered by a word? Like, what do you mean?
So okay, Hassan.
Proletariat, an inherently bad word, guys. It means the working class.
No, yeah.
You don't want alamite? How do I get cobalt?
I got that. Just ask how that worked out in Stalinist Russia, you know,
Oh
fighting
my
for the working
God.
class.
Only place where there's ever been the proletariat. No one has
Yeah, you know,
ever
like
worked
Mao's
anywhere.
China or, you know, Vietnam or Cuba
Yeah.
or Zimbabwe,
Okay.
or all the 100 other times we tried communism in the last 100 years. Bourgeoisie
That's not what I'm
versus
advocating
proletariat.
for.
It's great.
Do you understand the difference between Stalinism and Leninism and Marxist theory in general? There are different variations. What you're doing right now is taking advantage of a lack of education surrounding leftist ideology, and it's really disgusting. Instead, sit down and understand what the hell I'm talking about. I don't care about state assertion of power, okay? I don't care about authoritarianism. Obviously, I'm not an authoritarian. I don't like our current almost proto-fascist government right now.
All right.
Wow. Okay. Can I say?
go ahead,
So
go ahead.
Here's something, Hassan, just so the audience can distill this. I don't trust the government. Therefore, why make the government bigger? Hassan says he
Make the
doesn't trust
government
the government,
accountable.
and he wants to make government bigger. He says,
No.
"Oh, the government is." This is Hassan. The government is largely bought
Are
by
you
lobby.
literally doing a "this is Hassan" right now? Do you think you sound intelligent?
Can I summarize what you're saying?
Okay, go ahead.
We agreed that lobbyists have too much access to this government. You want to make that government bigger, stronger, more powerful. I want to make that government smaller and more accountable to the citizens. That's a huge difference between.
Or what if we say we want to make it so that companies can't do this rent-seeking behavior or disincentivize rent-seeking behavior? I mean, okay.
Conservatives and progressives.
I love that, look, are we going to have an actual intelligent conversation surrounding this? Because more government doesn't necessarily always mean more bad government. It's not like I'm advocating for corruption here. Actually, as a matter of fact, if you want to talk about corruption, let's talk about lobbying. Let's talk about lobbying.
This is fascinating, actually. Here's something I'm really curious about. The argument that this guy just made sounded so stupid, but this is the exact same argument that X-Skills.me used against me, where I said, I don't like government corruption. And he said, well, if you don't like government corruption, why do you support people like Bernie Sanders? Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you don't like the fact that companies can lobby the government and get a whole bunch of like good shit that fucks everybody over, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, Bernie Sanders is going to make the government bigger, and that's going to mean that companies can lobby for even more preferential treatment. It's like, wait, well, hold on. Well, obviously, you would try to fix the fact that companies can lobby, the fuck out of government. And he was like, oh, like, I wonder if there's like a common genesis for this argument. If there's like some video or some speech or some person or some idea that where this was like disseminated at like the Conservatives Weekly and I missed it somewhere.
Talk about how money is speed. You want to reform campaign finance laws and give me specific examples of how you want to do that. Because I don't think Foster Freeze, who's one of your donors, is going to be very happy when he finds out you're talking out of turn.
And I'm sure that the Democrat teacher unions are going to be pretty upset when you start talking about putting caps on Citizens United. Myth number one.
First, so this guy's not even a liberal, but I don't think he even knows what that means. So.
Somehow only Republicans and conservatives benefited from Citizens United.
I don't care
the
what they
Democrat
think.
labor
It's
unions
me.
were
I'm
the
talking to
biggest
you right now.
beneficiaries
There are
from
plenty of
Citizens
libertarians
United.
who feel
Hillary
the
Clinton
same way.
outspent Trump 2-1. So don't give me the idea that somehow
No.
it's only
I know.
Republicans.
Hillary Clinton outspent Trump 2-1, but that doesn't mean that she received twice as much positive media coverage. That's a pretty disingenuous way to frame that. There are a lot of different analyses that try to quantify the amount of unpaid but definitely valuable advertising that Trump received in the media due to the coverage of the debates and everything that he didn't necessarily pay for. But okay.
And only I'm going to finish. Hassan.
You know me,
Hassan, I can
notoriously
keep
not
interrupting you.
anti-Hillary.
We can keep
You're
talking
right.
over each other.
Charlie,
You
I
know,
want to hear your solutions on campaign finance. Yeah.
Let me go back to something you said earlier.
Okay, but like, dude, you can't paint like Democrats do this, Republicans do this. Ask me what my position is, and I will gladly tell you.
I will tell you my
giving
position
you that same
on
benefit.
campaign finance reform. No more dark money.
Specifically.
24-hour reporting
Okay.
period. Unlimited contributions.
Unlimited contributions?
Yes.
Are you out of your mind?
Okay, so let me ask
Are
you a
you out
question.
of your
Let me
mind?
ask you a question. The Young Turks Network.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's more liberal or would it's more conservative?
It's absolutely more liberal,
okay,
dude.
so when you talk, you're influencing an election.
You think it's the
Should that be
same?
regulated?
You think us?
Because that could be considered political speech.
No. You think
You see where that can get really dangerous?
Think that, hold on, let me just understand
he's gonna Nirvana fallacy the fuck out of him, but it's actually true. I don't know. Repealing Citizens United is very scary to me. I don't like the alternatives might not be preferential. I'm not sure, but
your line of reasoning here. Do you really think that Pfizer spending like $500,000 on a campaign so that we don't have to regulate drug prices, that's the same as me, a person who very outspokenly criticizes both parties, talking about it from a leftist perspective with almost zero actual representatives to support? That's the same to you? What an insane
Okay, so
what an
every
insane
speech
analogy.
has currency, okay?
What an insane
so
analogy. You
all
have to be a little
all
bit
speech
more
has some
rational.
form of currency.
You have to have a little,
whether
you
a
have to exercise
celebrity
some-
endorses a politician or whether a political action group endorses a candidate. So if your position
Yeah,
that
there's a
money, let me
difference.
finish. Allow me to finish. That money is speech, therefore money represents value.
How the
All
fuck am I
speech must
supposed to
therefore
counter
be
my
regulated.
friend's facts with anything I've heard in these debates? I've tried, but the person I always saw as my comrade is an avid Trump supporter.
I mean, well, like these debates are mainly for show, right? Like I don't think we've actually like talked about any or hammered out like any particular point. It's usually just like kind of like spieling and getting your platform across, and then letting the other person do it, right?
That when Lady Gaga
you're
endorses
trying to
Hillary
apply
Clinton,
flat
you must
logic to
endorse that.
something that is
Son,
insane.
Please, for the love of God, let me finish a sentence,
it's
okay?
insane.
I mean, so 24-hour reporting periods and no more dark money. I think allow transparency. If
Yeah, you give us 2 bones and then you take away everything with
if
a
a
crazy
corporation
unlimited...
wants to participate in an election, 24-hour reporting periods. Here's where you and I will agree.
What does a 24-hour reporting period mean? Is he saying like you have? I don't know what that 24-hour reporting periods. Is this like a commonly used term, or you have to report the money you spend within 24 hours? Okay, gotcha.
Why do lobbyists have so much power? Because government is so powerful. The idea that somehow we can grow government and make government better as we grow it, there is zero evidence ever to suggest that. Decentralize government back to the states and back to the people. We have too many federal bureaucracies running our life.
Hold on. Look, I'm asking you because I genuinely want to understand your perspective, okay? So you threw out a statement where you said there's zero evidence that more government is better. What does that mean?
Can you show me one time in the last 50 years when an American government program or agency grew
American
and it got
government program agency?
Yes, because we're talking about
but we
America.
live in a capitalist structure.
Can you
where
give me
people
one
like
piece of
yourself
evidence where an
understand that-
American government program grew and it got more efficient and it did a better job at delivering value to the citizens? One.
Medicare is a pretty good
$80 billion a year in documented Medicare waste.
Wait, so you think 11 million people...
Well, wait, compared to what? How much documented medical waste is there in the private community? That's like...
now being covered. You think the fact that 26...
By the way, here's the thing.
Wait,
we
hold
pay
on.
into Medicare
And then he launches into a new tirade.
later. Okay, so welfare, housing, urban development, education.
Who wants to cut Social Security, dude? Like, we're having this conversation as though we don't live in the same reality. Who's always aching to cut Social Security? Who's always aching to give tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations?
Who's always
even
aching to grow government?
Even
Who's
after
always
they have
aching to
had-
spend more
even
money
after
that you don't
they've shown
have?
record
Who's
high
always
profits?
aching to reverse the Trump tax cuts?
Look, listen.
Right, so like, look, here.
No.
here's
Hold
the
on. Let me finish my point.
Here's the big
Yeah, but you-
philosophical difference is that we both don't trust government. Only one of us want to make that government smaller and more accountable to the
No,
citizens.
dude,
That's
that's
me.
not
He
true.
wants to give more money and more power to the very government that we
I'm the
both
one who
don't
wants
trust.
to make the government accountable. You're the one who benefits from the government being corrupt, because then you can turn around and say, no, we don't need this government. We need it to be smaller so
Yes.
that your wealthy benefactors can virtually enact feudalist policies upon the same people who are cheering right now for free market enterprise as though that is going to save them. It is insane to me that people still think that this current broken system that we live under, okay, where wages have remained stagnant for the past 50, 60 years, while productivity has increased, which is, by the way, that's wage exploitation, just for those of you who don't understand that concept, but that everything is totally fine. And then you turn around and you say the stock market's great. Okay, the stock
you want
market
some more
is
numbers,
great,
Hassan?
but the
Let's talk
stock
about some more
market, who
numbers.
owns the
Oh boy,
stock
here we
market?
go. Another one.
Let's do some more
Oh,
numbers,
no, because
okay?
I'm making a good point. You have to interrupt. Look, listen.
So you
The stock
interrupted me at
market,
least
the stock
245
market,
times
the
already.
stock market. They look. Republicans love talking about the stock market. You mentioned it in your introduction. the stock market's doing well, consumer confidence is up. Okay, dude. Well, the 84% of the stock market is owned by the top 10% of wealth. Like, when the stock market is doing well, it's not doing well for you. It's just doing well for those guys. But you can be certain that when the stock market is not doing well, it won't be good for you. Absolutely not. No, sir.
Right, so
because everything is taken away from the workers. We talk about like, people always come up to me and tell me, hey, Hassan, why do you want to take away my earnings? And I told them, I'm not trying to take away your earnings. I'm trying to make sure your bosses give back what is rightfully yours. These are your earnings. You worked for them, okay? And it is very obvious that corporations are not magnanimously going to, anytime soon, give you back those wages, so we have to implement regulation. We have to implement certain policies. This could be UBI. I don't really like it that much, but this could potentially be taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Like, there are many different ways to do it. Or this could be regulating the wages in some way. Or allowing unions to exist in countries. I can't believe you're booing this, man. Your father has been, look, your parents have benefited from this. Your parents have benefited from this.
Charlie's going to come in now.
So first of all, if you want some more numbers, Hispanic median income is at $50,000 right now a year, which is the highest it's ever been in American history under President Donald Trump. Wages have gone up 3.8% in the last 18 months. Hispanic unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. Black unemployment
in the last what month? 3 months?
Hassan, for the love of God, allow me to finish, okay?
I feel like this guy's talked more than Hassan too. I could be wrong, but I feel like it feels to me like he's spoken for quite a bit more.
No, 3 months, that's a ridiculous point. That's a ridiculous reference point, Charlie.
Okay,
that's
what?
the point.
The lowest ever black unemployment rate.
Years. I gave you a 60-year window, and you said the last 3 months have been 3% better.
3.8% wage growth, $50,000 annual median income for Hispanic family, which is the highest it's ever been in American history. 3.9 million people have gone off food stamps under this administration 18 months, which is something that everybody should applaud.
I love
entered the workforce. We have more job openings than we have people to fill those jobs right now. 3.7% unemployment rate, 4.2%
open our borders.
GDP
Thank
rate.
you.
Hassan. Large average tax cut for
which is
American
why we
citizen
should
at $2,800 a year.
Obviously, there's more jobs available than people taking them, so we should bring in more immigrants, right?
Here's the big philosophical difference and problem, is that Hassan says, well, I don't want to take your worker earnings away. I want to go after your employer, essentially to make sure. I don't have the right to tell anybody what to do with any of their money. That's the big difference, Hassan, is that you're trying to
It's their money, Charlie. It's the workers' money. They are just taking away and accumulating the profits for themselves. I'm not, by the way, I'm not even saying abolish all profit.
This is a distinctly Marxist argument, by the way.
Just because it's Marxist doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Stop being an idiot, dude. God damn it. Like,
whoa.
Okay, so I'm so glad you mentioned that. So
it's so silly, like as if we implement socialized medicine, we're going to eat rats like Venezuela.
I didn't say it was bad. I said it was Marxist, and now I'm going to tell you why it's bad.
Oh, okay.
The problem with the Marxist argument is the incentive structure. In a free market system, incentives, everybody is incentive to create value, get a job, or take a risk and employ people. Under a Marxist socialist system, you're incentivized to either run for political office, get as much power as you possibly can, to try to extract money away from people that don't have it.
What about cooperatives? Like, I don't understand. There's multiple different ways to do this.
And do that voluntarily. Go do what the Amish do. Go live in northern New York. In America, we have people that live in cooperatives today. Don't tell me how to live my life. You can live your life however you want to.
It's just, look,
the big difference and distinction is that it's impossible to live as a capitalist in a socialist country. You can live as a socialist in a capitalist country.
It's impossible to have capitalism without socialism. You could never.
How's that?
You could never implement capitalism without public roads, without the infrastructure necessary to bring private industry. What the hell are you talking about? You can live in a socialist country. It won't be great. If it's a fully socialist country, I don't think we've been able to figure that out yet. So I'm not even saying that a fully socialist country will be great. But you have never, ever lived in a fully capitalist country.
You pay tolls? You pay tolls?
So that's it? That they're
that's a
financing?
user fee. That's not socialism. That's if you use the highway, you pay for the highway.
Highways are
you
not
pay a gas tax.
Okay,
you pay a gas tax. So if you drive a car, you pay into the highway fund.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
how it works, Hassan.
You're right.
You know,
Socialism is just what you want it to be,
I'm
and not what it actually is. You're right.
Fund
Never
a
mind.
program that will not benefit you to send the money to someone else that is in a different socioeconomic
Dude,
circumstance.
here's
Free
the
market
thing.
capitalism is the greatest wealth-creating engine in human history. It's lifted more people out of poverty, and you are
Dude,
a beneficiary
we
of the
obviously
very
have-
system that you are bashing right now.
No, because it's
Your
not
life
free
is
market
better-
capitalism. It's so stupid. When the last time we had free market capitalism or something close to it was leading up to the Great Depression, okay? There's no such thing as like we have a fully free market. Where is the fully free market? If you like a decentralized government, why don't you go live in Somalia? There's decentralized government there, all you want.
Well, so we are more capitalist than we are socialists right now.
Uh-huh.
And everywhere the free
Oh,
market...
so you admit that capitalism and socialism coexist.
So we have
Thank you for proving my earlier point, even though
Hassan,
you were like,
yes,
it's Marxism.
we have some So yes, we have broken public schools, which you would attribute to socialist policies. We
No,
spend money that
I
we
said
don't
that
have.
we need to spend
Government
more
is
on
far too
them.
big, far too powerful, far too controlling over our lives.
Dude,
we have a
stop trying to
$4.4 trillion
fearmonger over
budget every
socialism.
single
It's so
year.
weird. It's an idea. It's an ideology. You
we
can't
have,
like
we
make
have
it seem
3
so-
million people that work for the federal government. All of these are pseudo-socialist ideas, of which I categorically disagree with.
So you want to privatize the school system entirely?
Okay, localize the
No,
school
answer
system,
my question.
Eliminate
Answer
the
my
Department
question.
of Education,
Don't
send the money
run
back
away.
to the states.
Do you want to
allow a
privatize
voucher
the school
system.
system?
All right, one at a
What
time.
is by the way, what does Foster Friess think about all that? I would like to know his perspective because obviously his perspective
I would
is
love,
more important.
So if you're
But hold on.
just
You
for
wanna
you that don't know,
privatize-
he's trying to attack my investors and donors, of which I'm happy to talk about. We have 35,000 donors spanned in all 50 states. We now have
Wait, so real quick. Okay, so I see I can't do my start here. If I upgrade this, is it going to consume my kit? And then also, it's not going to actually turn these into... It's not going to turn it into obsidian. It's just going to make it so that it mines at the same level, but I'd still repair it with quartz, right?
a $15 million budget. And we are supported by some of the most successful people in the American business community.
He means
People that
wealthy
created
billionaires
over
who have
50 million
stolen
jobs,
your money
people that
and
created
your
wealth
wages.
for everyone. Oh, really? So when we get investments from people that, for example, helped create the modern internet
fuck
as
it.
we know it, or people that helped
Oh,
create...
how was the modern internet created? Oh, wait, that was also socialism. That
Well,
was actually
no,
military
okay, so
finance.
let me ask you a
So there
question.
you go. And another
So
example
tell
of
me-
how publicly
so tell me,
funded
Hassan,
research is good,
So
and we all benefit from it.
The most successful Silicon Valley companies right now are all socialist. Is that what you're saying? Google,
No,
Apple,
absolutely not.
Facebook. Oh, okay. So
Did the most
so we
successful Silicon
rely
Valley
on
companies
things
invent
in
the internet?
technology sector.
Come on,
We
that's
rely
not
on
what
the
I
free
said
market.
at all. That's not what I said at all.
No, hold on.
I'm talking
How about
the
internet providers? You just said internet providers.
No, I said ISPs need socialism so that there's an infrastructure set in place so that they can come
Of
and
which
build
they
their...
pay for every single year.
Okay,
So when they
exactly, that's
promote the
socialism.
system- Yes, but in order for
Jesus
them
Christ.
to operate, they have to pay into it.
This is so silly.
We're talking about two different definitions.
No, we're not. There's one real definition that I'm trying to describe to you, and then there's another one where you're just like making up and picking and choosing whatever is capitalist because it benefits your talking point, and then claiming that
Western
the rest, everything that's
civilization was
bad
created
is
by
because
free
of
market
your
capitalism.
government. I'm trying to explain this concept to you, but you refuse to understand. But I don't think it's because you can't understand it. I think it's because you refuse to understand because it doesn't fit your narrative.
My narrative's about freedom. My narrative's
No.
that America's the greatest
Yes,
country ever
but
to
there's
exist,
no-
and I want to expand freedom and opportunity for all people. My
There
narrative
is
is
no
that
freedom in a country.
the narrative I care
There's
is
no
that we have
freedom in a
global
country
poverty
that
at
has
the all-time low.
privatized tyranny, Charlie. There is no freedom in a country that has privatized tyranny, where your bosses can do whatever they want and never even give you an example, and never even give you a reason
I'm not arguing
for what.
anything in the same galaxy as what you're describing, first and foremost.
You just said I'm arguing for freedom. I'm telling you that
Yes,
progress is important.
let's
Progress
walk through. In a
towards liberty
capitalist system,
needs to happen.
that means you have private property rights, which mean if somebody is exploiting you, you go to a judge and you adjudicate that
Okay.
differences. That is inherent in a free market system. You're arguing.
Is it ever irritating to people that these guys never actually like deal with what they agree or disagree is exploitative, right? Because like so lefties believe that labor or rather that hiring a person and then skimming profits that's inherently exploitative. Why don't they ever just talk about this? Is there a reason why? Because like if they settled that, it would settle a lot of this conversation, you know? Like Charlie's never going to agree with Hassan about what is exploitative if they never actually hammer away this fundamental point. But I guess like nobody just ever does this. It's like really fucking annoying.
arguing some sort of
Is that the
some
only thing that happens?
abstract
What happens when free market
anarcho-capitalism.
fails? What happens when there are natural barriers of entry and the government obviously has to step in and subsidize? What happens? Like we have socialism,
So, like
in the
affirmative
country,
action
but
policies,
we
you'd
only
be in
have
support of affirmative
socialism
action.
for the wealthy, and we have some socialism for the very poor.
Okay,
What we
so-
need to do is bring that back and have socialism for everyone. For example, Medicare for all would be a good place to start.
Okay. So you
There is no answer you can give me to what will happen when automation wipes out the labor force with artificial intelligence. Socialism, whether you like it or not, some variation of that
This
already
is Jenna.
exists in our country.
Her HS story wasn't exactly a picnic. Her symptoms were pain.
But some variation of that
most
that will make you
inefficient, the
deeply
most
uncomfortable
bankrupt aspects
will
of our
inevitably
country.
happen. So it's really silly. You can yell about the free market and how great it is, and also the free market's great because my dad is wealthy is not an argument that you can make anymore, okay? There are people that are suffering in this country.
So Hassan, why don't you give 95% of your money away and go live on a commune?
Do you really think that that's how it works? Do you really think
Why
that
not?
that's how it works?
Go
This is
live
as
what
silly-
you preach.
Look,
Because every single
This is
time
as
you
silly.
talk uninterrupted for 5
This
minutes.
is-
Hassan, let me.
Okay,
Oh
go
my
ahead. Sorry,
God.
you're right.
Live
You're right.
what I practice.
Make
I'm
your
a free
ridiculous
market
tweet,
capitalist. I
point.
employ people. I took a risk. I have my own startup business. Every single day, I practice what I preach. He wants other people to contribute to what he considers to be a good idea, what he considers will make the world a better place. That you
Okay.
have the freedom to go live as a socialist. Go do it, Hassan. What's stopping you?
Okay,
All right.
so here's
We'll
why
have to-
this
and
is
we'll have to-
ridiculous.
this is
And
the
the
last-
last point,
this
the
is the
last
last
point I will
point.
make is this. Here's why that conversation is absolutely preposterous. If I gave away the measly earnings that I had and gave away 95% of
How much do you make,
that
Hassan?
wouldn't necessarily even push the needle. I will be very honest. It's really embarrassing, especially because my boss is sitting right there. I make $60,000 a year, okay? And that's a really good salary, but it's not like what Ted Cruz's wife was talking about the other day when she said $174,000 salary a year. It's not like we're gonna buy a second home anytime soon, but that's besides the point, okay? You're trying to attack me, which is ridiculous, like asking me what my salary is. Sure, I'll reveal it willingly.
You brought
But
it up
listen-
in context. I'm
No,
asking,
no, no,
why don't you
hold
live
on,
like a
hold on, hold on.
socialist?
Okay.
Go live like a
The point is
socialist.
larger. The point is larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Shank.
guys.
I live as a capitalist, okay? I live what I believe.
No.
What do? I get charity every single year.
Hold on.
What's my
Charlie,
salary?
Charlie,
Less than his.
Charlie, take
Come on,
a seat.
Shank, let's go.
Charlie,
No,
take-
what are you doing? Sit.
Take a seat. Take a
down,
seat.
psycho.
All right, no. Take a seat. You're gonna take a seat. You're gonna take a seat over
Oh
here.
my God.
What's my salary?
All right.
Oh, ridiculous. All right, behave, everyone. Jesus
Okay.
Christ.
Okay.
I practice what I
Hey,
preach,
hey,
Shank.
Charlie.
You,
Stop.
you do
Stop.
not
Almost,
practice
Mr.
what you
Stop.
preach.
Charlie.
All right, hold on.
remember-
Last point.
You don't want to give him the attention here.
Everyone, quiet
35,000
down.
donors
Quiet down.
across
Quiet
the
down.
country, my
Last
friend
point.
Shank.
Last point. I was-
We are funded by the grassroots of this country.
Saying that you're
You could try
funded
to-
by 35,000 people doesn't say anything. The real question is, okay, well, what percentage of your funding comes from small versus large donors? Because that's the interesting question, right? Say, hypothetically, 34,999 people donate $1 to you and one person donates $10 million to you. That's a lot different than 35,000 people all donating $150 to you, right?
A demagogue at all you want.
Okay. Can I finish my point?
All right.
It's entirely possible that the majority of their donations come from small funders. That's possible. I don't actually know the answer. I'm just saying that his stat doesn't prove his answer one way or another. And the fact that he says that makes me feel like if I was a betting man and I had to place money, my feeling is that the vast majority of his money comes from a large donor, and that's why he frames it that way. Compare that to, say, Bernie, who would always say, like, the average donation that we receive is like $17 or $27 or whatever. Although, I guess arguably, was that the average or the mode? I guess arguably you could argue that could be swayed as well, right? That like one huge donor could push up the average. But I would have to go look up exact numbers on Bernie's stuff. But I'm pretty sure that like most of Bernie's donations were like small time donations, right? You mean median? It could be median or it could be mode, but mode would be kind of weird to use here. Mode is the most commonly occurring number in a set, right? Mode is average? Wait, what? What am I wait. I thought mode was the number that occurs. The mode is a value that occurs most often. Yeah, okay, fuck off. Chill.
Hold on.
Charlie.
Let me finish my point.
All right.
Right? We're having a reasonable discussion, right? We're here, we're talking to one another. Let's stop screaming at one another, including those of the Young Turks who obviously don't pay me enough. So, so here's what I was trying to say, okay? We like to make ourselves feel comfortable by like implementing certain environmental policies for example, like the straw ban in California, which is largely ridiculous because it lowers 0.006% of the plastic in the ocean. This is just simply to make ourselves feel comfortable when 100 companies are responsible for 71% of the carbon emissions. Like, it's ridiculous to think that we are going to have any sort of positive change if I go out and I live in a upstate New York like collective. Obviously, I'm fighting so that everyone can at least see that I'm coming at this not from a partisan place, not from a partisan place at all, or from a place where I'm looking at our problems in this country and trying to find solutions that will help every single American.
Okay, perfect. So we have to wrap it up now, but I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I'm really grateful to both of you. What we're seeing right here is
a shit show.
except for that last part, is American democracy at work. This is about a competition of ideas. And since the founding of this country, this is really what it was all about. What's the role of government and what's the role of free enterprise? And so I just want to thank both of you for having a constructive and lively
Was it
debate.
constructive?
Give both of them a big round of applause.
God bless America.
Thank you.
And God bless Donald Trump.
Oh,
Thanks. That's great.
thank you.
Holy Christ. Honestly, after watching that, I think I would try to find ways to personally rattle up that dude, because he seems like he's real susceptible to tilting. Holy shit. Any criticisms for Hassan? I think that being able to the Gish Gallop is like really strong. Like, it's a really effective debate technique. I think that in live debate platforms like this, I think you should utilize whatever like scummy tactics are available. And he definitely needed to work on that more. Like, being able to just like regurgitate like 50 million facts or whatever, like over and over again, whether they support your argument or not, I think is really good. Bernie was really good at doing that, at like regurgitating a lot of stuff relating to education and whatnot, and then like using that to hammer home like very fundamental talking points over and over again.